Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today I'm going to reverse dye a rayon shirt. This shirt is a black rayon shirt which I purchased from Walmart. It's 93% rayon and 7% spandex. It's also a Time and True brand shirt. I have the shirt turned inside out, and since this is my first time doing this type of shirt, I'm going to do kind of a simple design. I'm going to just do some random sinew lines. So I'm going to gather the shirt up in several areas and place a sinew line. The shirt is pretty thin or delicate because it is rayon. So I've actually heard of tie-dyers tying their sinew lines too tight and chopping off a piece of the shirt. So I'm trying to tie my sinew lines fairly tight, but not so tight that it actually damages the fabric. But since I'm going to reverse dye this shirt, I do need my sinew lines tight enough that all the color doesn't get removed from the shirt. For the color removal process, I'm going to use a product called Out White Brite laundry whitener, and I find mine at Walmart on the laundry aisle, normally next to the bleach products. Thankfully, it's not a bleach product, so it won't damage the fabric the way bleach will. If you can't find any at your local store, then I have a link down below in the description for this video for where you can purchase some from Amazon. For the first part of this color removal process, I'm going to leave the video at real time. I want you to see how quickly this product really works. I'm using the product outside because it does have a smell and I don't want that in my dye space, and I'm also wearing my respirator for this entire process because I don't want to inhale any of the powder or the fumes. I'm going to remove the color from quite a few items all at the same time, so I've placed them inside of a plastic tub or tote and then sprinkled the Out White Brite over the top. Next, I'm going to pour a couple of pots of boiling hot water over the top of the Out White Brite. The minute that boiling hot water hits the Out White Brite starts to foam and immediately remove the color. Ideally, I would prefer if the items were fully submerged underneath the Out White Brite solution. However, because I have so many items in this container all at the same time, that's not going to happen. So to make sure everything gets fully saturated, I'm going to use a pair of metal tongs, which I purchased from the Dollar Tree dollar store, and move the items around. Kind of rotate the items on the bottom of the container to the top. I'm also going to add a little bit more dry Out White Brite periodically throughout the process. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up. But as I noticed an item had the color fully removed, I would take it out of this tub or tote, place it inside of another tub or tote, and take it to my utility sink and rinse it in cold water. Some of the items that I'm removing the color from are tied fairly loosely, like the design is not a real thick tie, and those items had the color removed fairly quickly. Some of the ones, like geode designs, are a little bit thicker, and it took a little while longer for the Out White Brite solution to get into the center of those folds. This whole entire process from start to finish with the Out White Brite solution probably only took maybe 20 minutes, and part of that was I was stopping to rinse items in between. So after I rinsed each one of the items in this tub or tote with some cold water, I placed all the items into my washing machine and I washed them on a cold water cycle using a little bit of Dharma's textile detergent. I wash my items after I do the color removal process to remove part of the residue from the Out White Brite and the smell. After the items came out of the washing machine, I placed them inside of a soda ash solution and allowed them to soak for about 20 to 30 minutes. I wanted to make sure they got well saturated with the soda ash. Then I spun them out of my Panda spin dryer and placed them aside to allow them to dry out. I like to dye really thick folds when they're dry because I feel like I get better color saturation. If you'd like a little bit more explanation about this topic, I have a blog post out on my website that explains it in more detail, and I have a link to my website down below this video in the description. This shirt, because it's not a super thick fold and the fabric isn't very thick, would have been perfectly fine to go ahead and dye while it's still damp. I just happened to be working on some other projects, so this one didn't get dyed until it was dry as well. By the way, I forgot to mention that whenever you remove the color from part of the item or you're dyeing over an item that's previously been dyed and you place it inside of your soda ash solution, some color and smell can come out into that soda ash solution. So I usually don't ever reuse that soda ash solution for regular white shirts. I placed a photo of what my soda ash looked like after I soaked all these items in this tub. The blue dress that you kind of see on top of this Out White Brite solution left a definite blue hue inside of my soda ash. So after the color removal process, this shirt ended up kind of a taupe color. I do have one little area of sinew that is come untied or is kind of sticking out. I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. Then I've placed the shirt down inside of a plastic colander, which is expandable, and I've placed the expandable colander over the top of a plastic tub or tote. By the way, I get asked where I get some of these colanders. The metal colander that I use that's expandable, I purchased from Amazon, and I'll place a link for that down below in the description. I also have a couple of gray expandable colanders, which are a little bit smaller, which I purchased off the TikTok shop. This particular expandable colander, and then I have another one that is not only expandable, but it also is collapsible. I purchased both of those from TJ Maxx. TJ Maxx usually has a pretty good selection of colanders, and they're also usually fairly priced. I'm going to apply the dye over the top of the ice for this shirt. So I've filled my colander with ice, and then for this shirt I've chosen to use Sultry from Dye Spin, which is a Dye Spin Dark Horse dye, Watermelon, Baby Pink, and Red Wine from Dharma Trading Company. I'm going to apply the dye in stripes across the ice. And then once I have the dye on the shirt, I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top of the dye. Then I'm going to place the shirt aside and allow the ice to melt. Whenever I apply the dye over the top of the ice, like on this shirt, I generally don't come back and add any more ice to the shirt. I've included some process photos so you can see how the ice melted. After all the ice melted, I left the shirt for about 24 hours before I began rinsing it. To rinse the shirt, I took it to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. Then I untied the shirt and warmed the water up to hot and continued rinsing in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. Instead of rinsing for a long time, I went ahead and ran some really hot water in my utility sink, added some Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, and just allowed the shirt to soak. I was actually rinsing out quite a few shirts and items that I had reverse dyed and dyed all at the same time. So I placed most of those items in the sink all together. They're not exactly the same colors, but they're fairly close. And because I added the Blue Dawn dish detergent to the water, that's going to keep any of that soaked out dye from rebonding onto the fabric someplace else. I kept changing out the water when it would cool off, and I continued that soaking process until my water was remaining almost clear. Then I placed this shirt along with the rest of the items that I was soaking in my washing machine, and I washed them all using a hot water cycle and a little bit of Dharma's professional textile detergent. At this point, the shirt has been washed, dried, and ironed, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks really pretty. I love the dark lines with the bright kind of reddish, pinkish, orangey type dye colors. There's quite a bit of color variation in this shirt, but it's a pretty soft feel, kind of almost like a watercolor feel, which makes sense since I added the dye over the top of the ice. It made it a little bit softer. So I think it's a really pretty shirt. I think with the lines kind of going diagonally, it will be very flattering to wear. And like I said, I really like the contrast of the dark lines with the kind of red tones. But what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed watching the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.